Hello, myself Sunil R. Here basically we are discussing about one topic, that is ideas. In ideas, basically we already almost talked with the related to the railway system basically. And railway system actually it's a very big level system basically. We will keep discussing this basically. I have already opened this railway system basically picture basically. Whenever I will open this basically it would be related to the railway system only basically, and that is very dangerous basically. And this everything basically the Indian Railway Group basically knows basically that 120 planets basically are there for the special railway system, and the doctors basically are handling this 120 railway system, sorry, 120 planets, and the doctors basically are Indian only basically. They are not basically the German, American or European. So they are Indian only basically doctors. Like this basically the sand basically the land basically which containing the story of the which story basically it is containing, from which our planets basically the land is created, that data also the doctors group basically have, and the doctor group basically have that data also, that on the base of this data basically the 120 planets has created, and then on the base of the power supply data, on the base of the iron data, because train is running from iron na, basically train basically is running on the base of iron basically. Few people says that nowadays basically it's some other material basically used. So that also basically the changes basically might have done in the planets basically. Without that basically it's not possible basically. So it might possible that somebody might be doing the verification and keeps doing the verification. That also basically might possible, because it might be thinking basically that nobody is supposed to take the control from him basically. So he keeps on doing the verification by changing this, changing that. That if that is effecting perfectly, that means the things basically is done perfectly. So new basically changes basically which is done in city, that is very dangerous basically. It might affect the entire city basically, and it might possible that whenever the testing basically of the new things basically happens, most of people basically, the most of rich people basically leave that city only basically. They basically never stays in that city basically, because they know that anything basically can happen basically. But everything is basically tested then basically, but then also basically they leave the city basically. That why basically that they only basically might be knowing. So that basically is different topic basically. So here the thing is 20 percentage global warming data which is connected with the education, and that is one idea basically. So entire education system basically, if you can say basically, that is idea basically. Education system means A to Z, 0 to 1, each and every symbol, that basically the border basically, that is education system basically. That basically contain 20 percentage error basically, and mostly basically that error basically is there. That's why basically Kashmiri group basically finished that 40 percentage schools basically, and software industry basically contains 20 percentage error basically. So that is basically different thing basically, and that is going to affect to the entire universe also basically. That is also 100% correct basically. That is also basically 100% correct. That is also basically 100% correct. But that basically that software industry basically is a big university. No? Software industry itself is a big university basically. That also you can say. So that group basically might have found some solution basically. That basically is air condition is there. Then the environment of the software companies basically are there. They basically might have done some setting basically. So otherwise basically how basically they are working, that is the thing basically. How basically are they working basically, that is the thing basically. So this is education percent basically, that is 20 percentage error basically is there. So that basically government basically will look basically. Second is food industry basically. Food is also basically one idea. Reason basically is software basically has created nowadays food. Software chemical data is creating the fruits basically. So that contains into the ideas only basically. For example, CRM project is there. CRM project is generating one foods. CRM project is generating one food basically. So that food basically is one idea basically. That food is basically one idea. Another is basically the mood basically. Another one is basically the categories basically. That basically we have already discussed. Then basically sleeping basically, that also basically we have already discussed. The sleeping basically is very dangerous topic basically. I have already taken basically it's whenever the person is sleeping 24 hours, whatever things we eat, that basically their responsibility are there basically. They give the sleep basically, and this is very dangerous basically, because it might possible that he will not get up next morning also basically. That type of thing also basically happens. So sleep basically is very dangerous basically data. So the one of the person told that basically your software industry also has jumped into the project, no, sorry, the into the uh, food industry. Yes, basically CRM is creating lots of foods, CRM is creating lots of vegetables, CRM is creating lots of this, that, this. Then basically they told yes, basically yeah. So the sleep basically, whenever you give the sleep basically of that particular food, that basically is the crime basically. If that means you are by chance basically he is while sleeping basically he dies, that is going to affect to you only, right? Basically, your software industries only. Then into that, yes, basically you are 100%. For that, basically they do the investigation, na, basically. Death reports basically are taken by the doctors basically. They say that basically this was the reason basically why he get into death mode basically. So that's basically the doctors group basically who takes care of the software industry basically. Like this basically sleep industry is there. By natural sleep. Natural sleep means natural sleep means he is eating the natural food basically. Chemicals means chemical food he is eating. And nowadays basically most of countries, sorry, most of city basically of India basically, they basically don't get the natural food basically. Everywhere basically it is chemical food and foods from the software basically. So this basically might be some plan basically of some of the group basically related to sleeping basically. It might be some plan basically. On last day basically everybody is going to get actually what sleeping data is, and the plan basically done by the group. That also basically that is the 15%, isn't it? So last day basically everybody is going to get actually this reward basically, award also basically. How basically they finish the natural and how basically they dumped the software foods. That also everything basically we are going to discuss. So sleeping industry is very dangerous industry because they are going to give the sleep basically to each and every people basically. Ideas basically what are basically that we have already discussed. Train creation, this train basically is one idea basically. The software industry is one idea basically. Software industry is getting power from 120 sorry from 1800 planets basically. That is one idea basically. And software industry have the data of that 1800 planet also. That is also one idea basically. So software industry basically if they are getting any power supply basically from the planets basically, so 100% they might be having the data na, basically. They might be having the data na. That one of the idea basically one of the person told that basically this tomato planet, the potato planet basically you are creating basically from the software basically, is that basically the next generation power supply basically. This also basically somebody told it here basically, literally basically, is the software industry is creating the next power supply basically by, so that the power supply which is a computer is going to give, that would be from their data only basically. Is this a plan of basically the software industry basically? The satellite groups are basically doing some plan basically, big level plan, that they are going to supply the power supply basically. So this is also one of the plan basically. The group basically has given plan basically. So in next video basically we are going to see little bit more about this.